Trump attorney Todd Blanche is here now. Did your client get a fair trial?
I mean, no, I don't think so. I mean, we've been saying for over a year that we couldn't get a fair trial in Manhattan. We couldn't get a fair trial with the judge, and it played out in lots of ways exactly as we expected.
Was this judge fair? Did he follow the rule of law?
Look, I'm not going to criticize the judge right now. I think that there were a lot of decisions that he made leading up to the trial, which really hurt us at trial, that we very much disagree with. They're part of the public record. Everything from he not recusing himself to the decisions he made during the omnibus motion process, the motion in limine process. And what happens in a trial is you show up for trial, and all those decisions that have been made in the weeks and months leading up to trial, they matter. The evidence that can come in, the evidence that cannot come in. And when we showed up at trial, that's where we really felt that we weren't getting a fair shake.
You believe the judge should have recused?
Look, we filed two separate motions saying that the judge should have recused himself. He didn't. It's something that we went to the first department to appeal it before the trial started. I expect that'll be one of the things that we appeal.
So you believe this judge was biased because of his donations and because of his family financial interest in the outcome of this case?
Look, our system of justice requires not only the that a judge that is actually biased to recuse himself, but that a judge that even has the appearance of bias to recuse himself. And our papers are public. We felt very strongly that there was an actual bias that this judge had. And even if not an actual bias, that there was certainly a perception of bias. He disagreed. He's a judge, and in our system, he gets to make that decision, and it's something that we get to appeal, but we certainly felt pretty strongly about our position.
You believe Donald Trump's constitutional rights were violated?
In many ways, yes.
How so?
Well, if you look at, for example, the gag order that was put in place, and you had a situation where President Trump, who's on the campaign trail and is trying to compete with voices that are saying things every day that he cannot respond to without the risk of being fined, which he was, or going to prison for violating it. That affects not only President Trump, that affects every voter, whether they're going to vote for President Trump or against President Trump. That affects every single voter in this country because they don't get to hear from the candidate. We very much disagreed with that order. We appealed that as well. There was a lot about what happened over the past year that, I sit here tonight, the verdict just came down today, but really there's a lot that's happened over the past year that I think that Americans should look very hard at. Just the whole way this case was charged. The district attorney says that this type of case is a bread and butter, that they do these cases all the time. That is not true. It's just not true. This is a case that the records of President Trump's personal records, his personal checkbook from 2017, is what he was on trial for. That does not happen all the time. It doesn't happen all the time in Manhattan, and it doesn't have to happen all the time in any jurisdiction in this country. And that's fine. That's fine if you want to indict somebody and go after somebody for conduct that happened in 2017. But I think where it becomes problematic for me as a lawyer is don't look me in the eye and says, this is bread and butter. We do this all the time. That we're treating President Trump like we treat anybody else. That's not true. That's not true.
Here was Alvin Bragg just an hour ago.
Last, Mr. Steinglass, many people said the prosecution was masterful and flawless. Just want to know how you feel at this moment. Sorry.
I'll let you go ahead.
How do you feel?
Mr. Steinglass, I think some of you probably saw him speak for a little bit the other day. So he's done his job.
So the sense of what people are getting is this is a question from a reporter praising the prosecution. And then they're laughing, Todd. They're laughing. How does that make you feel? Listen,
They won today. They won today, and they're having their celebration, I'm sure, right now, and I suppose they're entitled to do that. I guess the way I would say about how it makes me feel is it kind of confirms the point in many ways, right? So the point that we've been saying that this is not fair, this is not what what this country should be doing to its political leaders, past and present. And then when you see it happen and when you see it celebrated and you hear laughter from the reporters at somebody who's just been convicted of 34 felonies, and I said this in the trial, but it's true. President Trump is an amazing man. He's president, he's running for president, and he has a public persona. He's also a husband, a father, a grandfather, and a friend to a lot of people. And so when you see that happen to him, and I was standing right next to him today, and it's heartbreaking because they're laughing at a man, at a father, at a husband, at a grandfather, and at somebody who's running for president and looks like will win. That's something that people should be troubled with, no matter who you're going to vote for.
After this came down, you guys huddled up, your team, and there was some discussion with the former president before you went and spoke to the press. What was his demeanor like in those moments?
Look, I've spent almost every day with him for 6 weeks. He's so impressive when it comes to somebody who's being on trial as a defendant. I don't know what it's like, but I've been around a lot of people who are on trial. It's hard. It's hard every day. And he was resolute, strong. We were all more upset than he was. We're all sitting there, and he said, "All right, let's go. What do I need to tell? What do I need to tell the American people right now?" And we told him, whatever's on your heart, whatever you want to say. And he said, "I got it. I got it." So we were all huddling in to give him counsel, and the man needed no counsel. And that's what he's been like. By the way, he's facing 3 more indictments. 3 more indictments. Right? So you're talking about a man that's been indicted 4 times in 1 year in four different jurisdictions. 4 different jurisdictions. Running for president and winning, and still able to just stand there and look at his staff, his team, a lot of great men and women that are around him every day, his lawyers, and just say, "You know what, I got this, let's go." And that's what he was like today for sure, which was a tough day, but that's what he was like every single day. I mean, there was a lot, everybody saw him every day. That wasn't a prop, right? That's who he is. And he went into court every day, and he sat there, and he had questions, and he helped us, and he was committed to his defense and fighting every single day, which is what he has done for the past 8 years. And so he gave me confidence today. Everybody texted me, my friends and colleagues, "How are you doing? How are you doing?" I'm doing fine. I am. I'm doing great, and we're going to fight, wake up tomorrow and fight. Next week, my team and I are going to Florida, because we have another case that we have to fight in Florida, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to go there, and we're going to go into a skiff, and we're going to fight that case too, and we're doing that because he gives us the energy, and we're doing it to hopefully to help him.
How involved was Donald Trump in his own defense?
What do you think? Very involved. And he's a smart guy. He knows what he's doing. He jokingly said to us a lot, sometimes he wanted to be the litigator. He wanted to be the one that was actually arguing because he's a smart guy and he knows what he's doing. We made every decision together. We did. And there were things that he was frustrated with. The judge several months ago, there was we wanted to be able to argue reliance of counsel, that to some extent President Trump was relying on his lawyer, and the judge didn't allow us to do that, and things like that, where he would really push us and say, well, why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? It was an honor for me to spend the last 6 weeks with him, defending him. It didn't work out. We got a bad result today. It's not over. It's not over at all, but it was great.
Were you satisfied with jury selection? And was the former president involved in that in any way?
Very much involved. He was right there with the whole team talking about the potential jurors. Look, was I satisfied? We put a motion in because we said we could not get a fair jury in Manhattan. And that's I'm not being disparaging to the jurors, man. They were great. They showed up on time every day. They were committed. They paid attention. But we're in a situation where we had a very limited number of people we could strike. And most of the folks, overwhelming number of folks, had a very strong opinion of President Trump, and it wasn't positive. And so imagine you, Jesse, going to trial facing 34 felony counts, and 100 people walk in the room, and the judge says, if you have a strong view of Jesse Waters, you can go ahead and leave. Half the room leaves. Half the room just walks out. Okay, so that's what we were dealing with. And look, that's not a reflection of the jury pool. That's not even a reflection of the judge. That's just the reality of New York City.
And that's the venue. And that's the big problem about this. Another big problem was that Biden's number 3 guy at Justice leaves Justice, goes and works for Alvin Bragg, and all of a sudden this case is resuscitated out of the blue. How do you process that?
Well, I'm not really allowed to comment on that because we're still under a gag order. But I will say that the timing of this most recent grand jury, meaning the 2023 grand jury that ultimately indicted President Trump, kicked into action less than 2 months after President Trump announced he's running for re-election. And there are coincidences, and then there's coincidences. And I don't think that that's just something that happened. The witnesses in this case testified about meeting with prosecutors since year of our Lord, 2019, 2018, okay? And now they're meeting again in 2023, going into the grand jury to talk about a records case that has to do with 2017. I mean, I don't have to make much an argument there about what the situation is. That's not, it kind of writes itself.
Yeah. You put on a case. We couldn't see it. There were no cameras in the courtroom. Could you tell us tonight, the audience, what you said in closing?
Well, look, our closing was the same thing that we've been saying in our writing to the court and saying to the world for the past year, which is that you cannot convict the former president of the United States of crimes, supposed crimes that happened in 2015, 2016, 2017, when you're relying on the word of somebody who, it's not only that he is someone who's lied under oath in the past, but his life mission is to destroy President Trump. There is nothing wrong with that, by the way. To each his own. This is America. But it's not enough that he is dedicated to destroying President Trump. They're calling him as a witness at trial. And that really bothered me as a former prosecutor. It bothers me as an attorney, as somebody who's part of the judicial system for the past 20 years. There's people that really shouldn't be witnesses at trial. And I said, I'm not saying they didn't say in court, and not saying they didn't say, in filings. And so that's what we said to the jury. And they convicted today, and their verdict is their verdict, and we're gonna fight. Would
you have done anything differently? Is there a witness you said, oh, maybe I should have called that witness, maybe I should have done this?
Yeah, I don't know. I got to think about that, man. Like, we had a team. My team is amazing. The folks that work with us they're brilliant, and the president has a team, and they're brilliant, and we all did the best that we could, and I wouldn't change anything that we did. Of course, I'm sure there's going to be folks that are on your show that take a different view, and maybe I will too at some point, but no, we did the best we could.
All right, well, Todd, thank you very much. It was a historic case, and you were a part of that. It didn't work out the way it should have, but that's life, and things will get better.
Thank you. Thank you.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.